Judy was completely exhausted after a hard day at school. She was lying face down on the bed, trying to reach the book that was lying next to her. This questionnaire is for the study group. The worst 5% must participate. Hearing this sent a shiver through the girl. "The student's job is to learn, isn't it?" said Dylan coldly, looking straight into the girl's eyes. The boy grabbed the girl by the collar, pulling her closer to him so that she wouldn't drop the mug behind her. Judy would like to live quietly and calmly, as if playing the role of an extra. But somehow, inexplicably, this guy has begun to affect her deeply. Every time she is near him, when he shines, being in the center of attention, Judy cannot take her eyes off him. But she is disturbed by his perpetually saddened looks. "I have no friends. I'm used to being alone," was the guy's attitude. But recently, there was a girl he began to meet more and more often, although she does not remember their first meeting. But he could not even imagine how important she is to him now. Such thoughts disturbed Dylan lately. "We are young protagonists leaving a unique mark on a seemingly ordinary and boring everyday life. Our daily lives have officially begun. Those were still the days of the samurai." "You said yourself that only those who care for the world can be called noble," the girl said admiringly, looking at her companion, and resolutely to herself she pronounced, "I want to become a true warrior, just like the owner of this incredible blade." Before she could finish the sentence, a stream of arrows suddenly came from the bushes. Without thinking long, the guy covered the girl with himself, trying to protect her. At that moment, there was a thud, and the girl fell out of her reverie. She was quite surprised to see the old teacher beside her. The bell from the last class rang. A group of guys that were members of the student council gathered in the planning department. Among them was Dylan. He was the future president of the school student council, but that still didn't spare him from some ridicule from his classmates. "I don't want to do your placement either, but you've managed to put it off for a week now," Dylan reminded his classmates, to which they began to ineptly make excuses. This pissed off his boyfriend a bit. He set the watering can down on the table with a loud clatter and walked over to the guys and said, "Since you're so busy, I guess you can leave the student council," and snatched a stack of papers from them. The guys were really pissed off at Dylan's behavior. "Why are you getting so mad over such a small thing? The election hasn't even started yet, and you already think you're the student council president." One guy responded heatedly, "Isn't this just a cover-up? It's all been decided long ago." Another sneer was heard behind the guy's back. "We're not allowed to behave like this around young master." The classmates didn't stop talking. With the documents, Dylan went to the teacher's room. Before he could even cross the threshold, he heard the teacher once again reprimanding someone, so Dylan didn't dare to go any further. "Look at your exam results!" Loudly pounding on the table, the teacher reprimanded Judy. The latter only lowered her head, agreeing with everything said. "Teacher, I realize my mistake." "That's it! Take your report card and write me a 2,000-word essay and think about your academic performance," the teacher said, holding out a sheet of paper to the girl. Wanting to leave the room as soon as possible, the girl said goodbye to the teacher and headed for the exit. At the entrance, the girl missed the boy, not paying much attention to him, but Dylan noticed a few details. The most ordinary day, but she seemed so... Her untied shoelaces. Judy walked into the bookstore with her friend. Her knee was shattered, but it was just a small thing she didn't pay attention to. Jessica was the daughter of the bookstore owner. She was always in the top 10 students in terms of grades. She was the one who asked her friend to be a little tougher on herself every time because her report card was getting more and more disgusting each time. "Why don't you just try to study harder again, like the previous exams?" Jessica reprimanded her friend, to which Judy just snatched the report card from her and said, "I'll spend half my life trying to get into this school." "Best count this for me," Judy said, holding out a couple of novelizations to her friend. "If you spent your time studying instead of reading novellas, then—" Jessica didn't have time to finish before her friend's murderous stare pierced her from head to toe. "It is believed that if you get into this school, Your road to university is already secured, so it's just a matter of grades. But the most important thing is to be happy. It was with this thought that the girl finished writing her essay and settled down on her bed, reaching out for a new novel. Life will be much easier from here on, but there isn't a second to rest at school, Judy thought as she looked at the announcement of the extra classes where her presence was mandatory. Classes will begin after the November vacation, so read it carefully, said the girl from the student council. Judy was penultimate on the ranking list, and the guy standing next to her was last, so their presence was mandatory. Judy searched in her head for a bunch of reasons just to say no, and at that moment, a heavy male hand was placed on her shoulder, and the phrase was uttered, "I hope we get along, Judy baby." Without a second's hesitation, the girl headed for the planning department of the student council. It was her first time there. So, each department of the student council has its own office, Judy thought with admiration. Walking into the office, the girl was a little surprised that no one was in the office on their lunch break. Suddenly, someone called out to her from behind, and she immediately remembered her favorite moment from the novel. "Pardon my rudeness, but please wait." Those were the words of the main character from that novel, while Dylan couldn't even understand a word from the girl's lips, as she was still dangling in her fantasies. Wait a minute, in a normal novel, we definitely wouldn't be friends. Then he's my enemy. But a handsome guy like that I definitely wouldn't forget. If you look closely, he looks a lot more. The girl continued to hover in her thoughts as she stared intently at the guy in front of her. "Judy, are you here?" Dylan asked, noticing that the girl didn't seem to hear him. "Sorry, can you say that again?" Judy said awkwardly, realizing the fact that she didn't understand or even hear anything the guy was saying to her. "Simply put, you're already on the band list, and I was the program director, so—" Before he could finish, the guy noticed again that the girl wasn't listening to him. Taking a sip of tea, Dylan also realized that she didn't even remember that we had already met yesterday. "You came to the student council about the study group, right?" Dylan asked the girl, although she had actually already forgotten why she had come here. "Let me explain. Students like you have to join the study group." Those cold words of the guy were like a shot straight to the girl's heart. It sounded like humiliation. Most of the students in the worst 5% this year are those who scored a passing grade on their high school exams. However, the difference between such students and those in front of them is so great that the overall average score in our school has dropped. Dylan decided to explain to the girl the whole point of the study group and why it was created. It was to improve the school's ranking in the province that the management developed the study group program. After saying that, the girl started to tense up a bit. "Joining the group is an opportunity to improve your academic performance." These words hurt the girl's self-esteem again. She could no longer drink her tea as before, carefree. And at this moment, the girl realized that in front of her sits a real nerd. The bell rang throughout the corridor. It meant that the lunch break was over. Without a second's hesitation, the girl jumped up and hurried out of the office. "Wait!" Dylan said, and quietly got up from his seat. "Better treat this wound," said the guy, handing the girl some medicine and a Band-Aid. The girl's heart beat at a frantic speed. It was as if she saw the hero from her favorite novel in front of her. Rereading the moment where the main character was described, she tried to find similarities between him and Dylan. But he only looks very much like a nerd. The girl thought with a kind of mockery, although their characters are so cold and hot at the same time. It was still their common characteristic that so beckoned Judy. Just then, Jessica popped up sharply from around the corner. "Tiny Judy, long time no see." Her friend was directly confused on the spot. "How come you call me Tiny Judy, too?" the girl asked, walking down the hallway with her friend. "So you can't run away from study group?" Jessica asked. "Well, things are going so bad these days." Judy answered her. Her friend also tried to cheer Judy up by reminding her of a meeting with her favorite author where she would be able to get an autograph. "But I wanted him to sign that book. Who knew the teacher would take it away?" Judy replied to her with a disappointed face. for she never got it back. Suddenly, Judy remembered that she had not yet handed in her essay, which the teacher had given her. So she turned 180 degrees and told her friend to go on without her, and went to the teacher's room. When the girl reached the room, she was out of breath, though she was not walking fast enough. I hope this old man is in his office. Suddenly, she saw Dylan coming out of the teacher's office, and she walked sharply around the corner trying to hide from him. Coming out from behind the corner, the guy called out to the girl, which made her scared. She felt bad. Her bag fell to the ground, and the girl herself began to fall to the floor. Picking up Judy, Dylan immediately asked her where her medicine was. But the girl's eyes had already started to swim, and she couldn't say a word. Holding the girl by her shoulder, the guy gently sat her down, sitting next to her. Things are not going well. The girl remembered her own words. The girl woke up already in the nurse's station. The nurse was just listening to her. But how can you not carry an inhaler, knowing that you have asthma? Reprimanded the nurse to the girl. The last time it happened was about 6 months ago. Judy awkwardly excused the lack of an inhaler. It's lucky they got you here in time and gave you the medicine. Otherwise, you might have gotten complications. You might even have died. Kids these days have completely stopped caring about their health. As she moved away from Judy, the nurse continued to mutter to herself. I get it. Awkwardly, with a smile on her face, Judy answered her. The girl was sitting in the nurse's station looking out the window, and abruptly her gaze fell on 2 backpacks that stood nearby. It was her yellow one, and someone else's black backpack. And then she remembered sharply. Judy remembered someone's warmth and the words, "Hold on a little longer." And after that, her eyes darkened again. I can't believe I was brought here. The girl blushed all over, and her heart began to beat loud and fast again. This uniform smells like milky shower gel, the same scent as him. Such a thought ran through the girl's mind as she inhaled the scent of the sweatshirt she was wearing. What are you doing? Abruptly asked the guy who had just entered the room. Judy was startled and very surprised. Why does he always appear so inconspicuously? The redness on the girl's face never went down. She didn't even dare to look up as she thanked the guy for bringing her here. I just looked it up that these symptoms are more common with the change of season, Dylan read without looking away from his phone. And the not-so-clean air and the drop in temperature since November can also trigger asthma attacks. Judy couldn't take her eyes off the nerd the whole time. Just a reminder that you should always carry your medication with you. Got it? How can you be so irresponsible to yourself? You're not a child, are you? These words again became like a knife to the girl's heart. She even lost the power of speech. And then suddenly, after his moralizing, the guy holds out to Judy her book that the teacher had taken away. This book. Where is it from? Questioningly, the girl looked up at the guy. I asked the teacher to give it to me, said Dylan with a nonchalant face. The girl was very surprised by such an act of the teacher, and without thinking long grabbed the guy and pulled him closer to her. The girl was very worried about the boy, because there were rumors that the old man taught the boys with a ruler. Putting the book down beside her, the girl began to look at the guy's hands, looking for the marks of blows on them. Don't be so emotional. I was just looking for this book, but it wasn't for sale anywhere, so I happened to see it on the teacher's bookshelf, and after explaining the whole situation to him, I asked for the book back. Dylan explained to her, trying to calm her down and put her on the bed. Tell Judy that the next time I catch her, I'll just burn the book. Those were the words the teacher was asked to give to the girl as he handed the book to Dylan. At that moment, the girl was overcome with frantic terror. After all, she had asked the teacher not to give her book to anyone. What a prejudice. Probably because I'm the best student, Dylan said in complete seriousness. Yeah, all you have to do to survive in school is do well in school, was the thought that popped into the girl's head. Nah. Well, isn't he showing off? No, he's serious. Through the flow of her thoughts, the girl heard Dylan's request to lend him a book, which she couldn't refuse. Judy was surprised that the guy didn't know that all books were now available online. But staring at a screen for a long time is bad for my eyes. I'd rather read a book, the guy said, putting the book in his backpack. Is he an old grandfather? The girl tried to hide her smirk and not laugh loudly to the entire nursing station. How are you feeling? Can you make it home on your own? After this question, the girl immediately jumped out of bed in a flash. Yes, let's go. I feel better already, said the girl enthusiastically, putting on her sneakers. Dylan only watched her silently. I noticed one detail. She tied the laces correctly this time. Under the influence of the novels she had read, the girl had romanticized their trip home together too much. So suddenly, the girl found a topic of conversation to break this awkward silence that stood between them by asking, You're a big fan of Mr. James, aren't you? Are you going to his autograph session in November? The guy was puzzled by such a question and decided to clarify. The autograph session will be at the main mall, right? The girl's happiness was unprecedented. She was glowing with joy because she didn't expect that the guy really knew that. Not thinking long, the girl offered the guy to go to this session together. Looking at the girl that was excited about his answer and all glowing with joy, Dylan unconsciously agreed to her proposal. My friend won't be back until November, and I thought I'd have to go alone. And it's so much more fun to go there with someone. Judy continued to fill the silence with her stories. Once home, Dylan dialed his uncle and notified him that he was coming to his signing session. Why did you change your mind again? Did you get interested in your other uncle's career after all? No. It's just that I promised your fans that I would come with them, the guy coldly answered him. There was no limit to the screams of happiness on the other side of the phone line. Dylan had to push his phone away just to keep from going deaf. Let's talk about this and see you later, Uncle, Dylan said sharply and hung up the phone. The boy stood at the window, looking out into the beauty of the nighttime city, with only one thing on his mind. A friend? The thought warmed the guy from the inside out. It was the last day before the November holidays, and students were already looking forward to the weekend. The whole school was standing on its ears. Discussions of plans for this weekend could be heard on every corner of this school. Of course, there are students who continue to study hard no matter what. One of them was Dylan. His plan for the day was to do his homework while still in school. Some students are already tired of lessons and have long since switched to rest mode. Such was Judy, who fell asleep in the middle of the lesson and did not hand in her work. Through her sleep, she heard someone calling her, and with half-sleeping eyes, she saw before her the main character of her favorite novel. But suddenly, his image changed to Dylan's silhouette, which told her, "It's time to learn!" Such an eerie dream awakened her abruptly, and she began to shake off the pile of papers. Tiny Judy, you've been asleep since the end of first period. Brandon, the same guy who was last in the class rankings, pronounced. Please don't call me Tiny Judy, the girl said with an annoyed and serious face, looking straight at the guy. Judy also noticed that they were the only ones left in the class. Why didn't you go to the gym with the others? The girl asked. You forgot. I'm a special student, so my workout is later, Brendan answered her with a smile on his face. Judy had no idea what he was talking about. Are you serious? We've been in the same class for a year, and you still don't know that? The boy jumped up and started bragging to the girl. I'm the only tennis pro in this school, the guy told her with a sparkle in his eyes. That's it. You're really cool. Judy somehow didn't seem very interested in answering him. The guy was really pissed off by such an emotionless reaction from the girl. After all, he was a celebrity. Say what you want to say. I want to sleep. It was clear that the girl was not very interested in the guy's story. She had more important plans. Having calmed down a bit, the guy remembered an important detail. In the study group, you have to divide into pairs. The girl didn't understand what Brendan was getting at. Well, I want to be paired with you, the guy said, looking at Judy. Why? Are you and I really that close? Still not understanding what the guy wanted from her, Judy said. The girl didn't think much about the arguments that the guy was throwing at her. So for her own peace of mind, she agreed with an exhalation and promised to think about his proposal. So much for talking. You go back to bed and I'll go to practice. Brandon waved his hand at Judy with those words and left the classroom. The girl was actually quite annoyed, but as she was putting her book on the shelf under her desk, she suddenly noticed a certain bag on the shelf. Right! That's that guy's school uniform. We need to give it back to him today, Judy remembered, holding up the bag containing Dylan's uniform. But there was a small problem. Judy couldn't remember what grade he was in. Her mind was a complete blank. At that moment, Judy suddenly realized that she didn't even know his name. How could I invite him to an autograph session without even knowing his name? How could she be so impulsive? Quickly calming down, the girl decided to forget about the embarrassment that happened yesterday and said, "The most important thing now is to find this guy." Well, the girl began to think over a plan how to find the unknown guy. We were together only in gym class, and that was in class 2, but I am 100% sure that I have never seen this guy before. So the girl came to the conclusion that it was necessary to go around all the classes, and she started with class 1. Just be patient and use your eagle eye, the girl thought as she peered through the window, looking closely at all the students. Luckily, the guy who was sitting right next to the window looked up to meet Judy's gaze, and she recognized him as the one she was looking for. Coming out of the shower, Dylan noticed a new message on his phone. It was Judy. She decided to clarify about the place and time of the autograph session. Seeing the guy, the girl waved at him from the window. Dylan didn't understand what she was doing and what she wanted from him. So raising his hand, he asked to get out. "What is this guy doing? The class isn't over yet." The girl didn't understand as she hid around the corner. To all this, Dylan came out of the main door still. Judy did not understand what this guy was doing, how he could be so calm. Before he could even say a word, the guy didn't notice. He was immediately grabbed by the arm and dragged downstairs. "Careful in case your teacher sees us." Covering the guy's mouth and looking around, Judy said, "You're such a jerk. The teacher and your classmates probably thought you just went to the bathroom." Judy began to reprimand the guy, still covering his mouth with her hand. "If they see you come out to talk to me, isn't that weird?" And at that moment, the girl realized what she was doing now and the position she was in. She abruptly removed her hand from Dylan's mouth and pulled back a little. The couple then crept quietly and discreetly along the wall so that no one would notice them. The girl was a little surprised that the guy left the office so quickly. "I just wanted to say hi to you. Sorry for the distraction." Judy awkwardly apologized as she handed over her uniform. "Don't worry. It wasn't anything interesting anyway. I was just remembering what I had to do." Dylan answered her in a calm tone. "He's showing off again. I should crack him once," was the only thought going through Judy's head at that moment. "Well, then I'm off, if that's all," said Dylan, heading for the exit. Suddenly, the girl awkwardly grabbed the departing guy's sleeve, thus stopping him and asked, "What's your name?" The guy was a little surprised by such questions. "What do you mean? You and I already know each other." "Sorry, I have a bad memory. I really can't remember," Judy answered him, a little embarrassed. "My name is Dylan," the guy replied with a soft smile on his face. This made the girl's heart beat faster again. Later, they exchanged contact information, and that same evening, Judy texted the guy that he could call her Baby Judy from now on, since it was only for close friends. The girl was very nervous because the guy didn't reply for a long time, although only 30 seconds had passed, and then he replied, "Yeah, good night." This message made Judy blush, and she started to get nervous. Without thinking, she began to imagine Dylan sitting next to her and saying that phrase, "Baby Judy, good night," right in her ear, burying her face into the pillow, trying to realize what she was doing. Judy didn't notice her older sister coming into the room and yelling because she was interfering with her work. "Sister, tomorrow is a holiday. Take a break from work," Judy said, looking at her hard-working sister. "I can't sit idle," replied the older one to her. "I see you have plenty of free time. Will you be free the other day? You had an asthma attack 2 days ago. Let's go to the hospital for a checkup," Sister said, alerting the plans for Judy. "How hard it is for doctors to work on holidays," Judy said pityingly as she left the hospital while the nurse reviewed the results of the examination. Suddenly, the girl noticed a familiar guy in the crowd, if it was Dylan. She wondered what he was doing here, and more importantly, where he was going. Horror appeared on her face when she saw the name of the department where he was going. It was psychiatry. One day before the autograph session, little Judy was excited, but sitting in the library, all her thoughts were preoccupied with something else. Seeing then a guy in the crowd that was heading for the psychiatry department, the girl grabbed her sister and headed sharply in the other direction, trying to avoid the encounter. Luckily, I got away in time. Otherwise, he might have been embarrassed if he'd seen me. Judy thought, satisfied with the job she'd done, though she was shaking outside. In that case, I must be kind to him and help to keep it a secret, were the conclusions the girl drew for herself, and she was determined to follow them. Such shaking of her friend involuntarily prevented Jessica from writing, so she asked her friend to calm down a little. "So, you've already done your homework. What are you writing?" Judy asked. But when her friend replied that she was writing an essay, the girl pushed her thoughts aside and immediately snatched the sheet from her to look at it. Reading her friend's essay, Judy's face turned pale. She didn't understand what she was talking about. Something about a serious illness. And then Judy realized that the guy her friend could never beat in the ranking was Dylan. "That's what it means to be unrivaled," her friend said with a tired look. And then Judy began to remember how in middle school, her friend had always whined about how a certain Dylan had scored higher than her again. So Judy decided to ask her friend what kind of person Dylan was. An unpleasant person. A nuisance who took first place away from me. Her friend answered her with a hint of judgment. It all sounded like she definitely didn't like him. "Who told you that? While it's true that a lot of people hate him, at the same time there are those who like him." Jessica continued her story. "He's so famous that a lot of girls come from other schools just to see him play basketball in gym class." Jessica recalled a couple moments when she noticed crowds of girls squealing outside the school watching Dylan play. But suddenly, Jessica visibly changed her tone to a more serious one. "But pay attention to current events. It's not he himself that is more famous, it's his family." With an eerie look, Jessica finished this sentence with a click of her pen. "His grandfather, father, and aunt are famous musicians. His grandfather donated the building to our school. His relatives on his mom's side are even cooler. His grandfather is a former mayor, and his grandmother was an entrepreneur." Jessica continued her story. She illustrated every word. "He's awesome!" Jessica finished her story by drawing the guy as a prince. "If I were him, I'd inherit the family business right away." This was not a story Judy was prepared for. She hadn't realized there was such a great shine of protagonist around this nerd. I used to think that Dylan's image was very similar to the protagonist of the novella, but I didn't even realize that he lives like a typical protagonist. Now such thoughts were spinning in the girl's head after her friend's story. Now she understood why the guy asked her if she didn't know him. It was a bit cocky, but he definitely had the courage to do such a thing. The day of the autograph session had arrived. Judy sat in her room in deep sadness, not knowing what to wear. She was faced with the task of wearing something unique that would show her delicate, cool, lively, and cute style. But at the same time, it had to be business as usual. But at the same time, she had to stand out. "I'm going to be late if I don't get out of the house on time!" the girl shrieked as she heard the sounds of the alarm clock that rang throughout the room. Eventually, Judy put on her casual clothes. Looking at her reflection in the window of the cafe, the girl became dramatically nervous and leaned against the glass. It was a one-way glass, that is, those inside could see what was going on outside, but Judy that stood outside could not see those who were sitting inside. All these worries of the girl were interrupted by a phone call. It was Dylan. "Hi, Judy baby." These words made the girl blush again. The guy in a calm tone told the girl to stand still and not to go anywhere. He would find her himself. A phrase was heard in the phone receiver. "Turn around." Taking the phone away from her ear, the girl saw Dylan standing in front of her. Suddenly, behind Dylan's back, someone called out to him, which caught the girl's attention. From behind, a man approached the guy and, putting his hand on the guy's shoulder, said, "He left you for just a couple minutes and you ran away without even saying goodbye." The girl was in an incredible shock, because in front of her now stood James, the author of her favorite novel and the man to whom she is now going to the autograph session. Looking at the girl, Dylan noticed how she was visibly nervous and as if something was wrong with her. "How can I be okay?" The girl screamed, and tears rolled dramatically down her face. "Why didn't you tell me earlier that your uncle was Mr. James? I didn't even say hello properly. He must have thought I was rude." Judy started to blame the guy, thus depressing herself. Judy was really excited and didn't understand if it was all true, if everything was happening in reality, so she missed all the words that her favorite writer said to her. Even though Dylan had retold all the words of her uncle, who turned out to be a famous short story writer, Judy was still mad at him. "So you're mad because I didn't tell you he was my uncle?" Dylan tried to get to the truth as they walked through the mall. "I'm mad at myself for misbehaving in front of him," the girl continued to berate herself. Jessica hadn't mentioned it yesterday either. Maybe it's another secret no one knows about. Judy scrolled through her friend's story about Dylan's family yesterday in her head. Interrupting Judy's train of thought, the guy holds out the book for her to autograph. "Just lend it to me for a bit after the signing. I haven't finished my reading notes yet." The girl was surprised to hear about the reading notes, but she was more concerned about where he got the book from. "Since Mr. James is your uncle, why don't you just borrow the book from him?" Judy was still trying to put 2 plus 2 together. "Only 2,000 copies went into circulation this year. All he had left was burned by his grandfather," Dylan told her. At this point, only sadness was showing through on his face. Suddenly, Judy stopped and asked a rather direct question. "And after that he left home?" With tears in her eyes and shivers all over her body, the girl began to tell about the rumors she had read on the internet that said he left home to pursue his dreams, worked during the day, and wrote at night, and ate only 3 packets of noodles a week. Of course, some of those rumors were true. But it wasn't all that sad. He said that being happy was more important than anything else in the world. That was Mr. James's life principle. "What about you?" Judy asked suddenly, and immediately began to blame herself for this silly question. "First I speak, then I think," for she suddenly remembered his visit to the psychologist. Trying to fill this awkward silence, the girl began to read out a quote from the book. "Your pain is not from the wound itself, but from the fact that you keep thinking about it. I hope you're happy." The girl finished reading this and looked up at Dylan. "So if you have any problems, just forget about them. Happiness is the most important thing." Judy tried to get out of this awkward situation somehow. "Unlike the first time I met her, now it seems as if she makes my soul feel warmer." That's what was going through the guy's head at that moment. He couldn't take his eyes off the girl. "I have nothing left but to follow her." With that thought, the guy continued talking to the girl. In fact, when the girl tried to fill the awkward silence between them by reading out articles from the book, the guy was a bit perplexed. "Why is she suddenly reading all this stuff to me?" thought Dylan, while his shoulder was already whimpering in pain from the young lady's patting. As the couple stood in line for their tickets, the guy even turned pale at the number of people. "Of course, there's going to be a crowd at Mr. James's autograph session. Is this your first time at such an event?" Judy asked him. "I've been to private meetings of musicians and things like that, but it wasn't as crowded," Dylan answered her. "How wonderful to be here with a friend," was the thought in the guy's head as they walked through the crowd. At this time, Julia was thinking to herself, "I think I misunderstood you a bit earlier. I guess you're not a big fan of Mr. James, so why did you agree to come with me?" Asking this question, though, she was confident, but inside, she was even more confused. However, the boy's answer killed all Judy's confidence and made the girl even more embarrassed, for she had called him herself to go. This answer stumped her, so the girl started, awkwardly excusing herself as if she had 2 tickets. Her friend couldn't go. And then Dylan had been so lucky to lend her the book and found out about the autograph session. Well, that's how it turned out. By the way, when you were reading the book, did you notice that you look just like the main character? The girl suddenly remembered. Actually, Dylan didn't expect this kind of compliment to hear in his direction, but the girl interrupted him by saying, "That's why I really wanted to be friends with you." This made the guy blush a little. He didn't know what to say to that, but it was their turn, and the checker asked to see their tickets. A crowd of people started to enter the hall holding an autograph session. At this time, the host was standing on the stage starting his speech. I'm sure you are all familiar with our today's hero. Many people have grown up on his works, the presenter continued to say. And at that moment, Mr. James comes on stage, greeting the audience with all, "Hello, long time no see." Even though the girl had seen him closer in real life, she was so excited sitting in the VIP seats where she had a great view of Mr. James. All of a sudden, Mr. James looked straight in Judy's direction and even winked at her. This made her frantically nervous, and she started clapping the nearby seated Dylan on the shoulder with all her might. The guy actually sighed in relief when the girl calmed down and remembered that she had a photo to take. While she was enjoying the autograph session, the guy kept scrolling through their dialogue. You just don't know, I'm actually not as good as him at all. Suddenly, the girl leaned closer to the guy and whispered, "If you're not a fan, then this interview won't be interesting for you." Noticing that the guy was somehow not very interested in everything that was going on. "It's okay. This is the first time I've seen my uncle like this. Usually he's an arrogant, sloppy, middle-aged man, and this is new," Dylan said, which caused Judy to laugh a little. "Every story has something of myself and the people around me in it. Some characters are like distant friends. They go on with their lives and write their own story," Mr. Jason replied to a question asked of him. "Is there a character that you love the most and think is unique?" was the presenter's next question to the short story author. This question made the author a little embarrassed. "This is the first time I'm saying this publicly. The prototype for the main character in my book was my brother. He was the one who supported me when the world turned its back. My brother wasn't much of a talker, but he always kept his mouth shut." Mr. James continued to answer the question. "He is no longer with us, so in the book I gave him the end he wanted." After this sentence, Dylan's face changed. It was as if he was remembering everything that had happened to him before. "Because of him, I started writing and became what I am now." The author finished his answer. "I'm sure your brother would be proud of you right now," said the presenter admiringly. "Stop staring at me," said Dylan, noticing Judy keeping her gaze on him. "The man he was talking about is my father," as if answering her mute question, said Dylan with a smile on his face. The girl was getting nervous little by little. A bunch of machinations were going on in her head. She was trying to match the image of Dylan's late father and her favorite hero. With each phrase of the guy, looking at his facial expression, the girl realized more and more she began to feel that his world is more complicated than she thought. After receiving the autograph, the girl was overwhelmed with emotions. Now there is nothing more to regret in this life. The guy decided to offer the girl to have dinner with her uncle, so he proposed this idea, to which Judy replied, "Forget it. I'd better keep my distance with Mr. James. I can't even eat sitting at the same table with him." So she offered Dylan an alternative. "Then let's go out to eat together. I know a great place." To which the boy, again without hesitation, agreed. "This will be the first time I'll be dining out with friends, and the first time in my life I've ever eaten pork shanks at a roadside restaurant." In fact, Dylan wasn't used to eating in such places, much less such strange dishes. "Try the pig's feet. Very tasty. They're not greasy at all and just melt in your mouth." Judy was already melting from the anticipation of these delicacies. When Judy ordered, the cashier informed them that there were no seats inside, and she could only offer them seats outside. At that moment, Brandon's voice came from behind. "What a coincidence, Judy baby!" He motioned for them to sit down with him. "Isn't that Captain Cap from the Music Box series, Bailey's little parrot?" Dylan visibly hovered and started walking closer and closer to Brandon's table. Judy didn't realize what was going on at all. "Dude, you like that toy series too?" Brandon said with surprise. It was a common hobby amongst the strong men. All this time, Judy stood there not realizing what was going on around her. But then she suddenly remembered. "I think Dylan had a similar mug with a dog in it. And really, he drank from it when I first came to the student council. When the waiter brought all the food to the table, Dylan didn't even know where to begin. If you don't know what to eat first, you can try these bites." Judy said, and motioned a plate of delicacies to the boy. Brandon was watching and abruptly asked, "Why didn't you introduce us? Is he your boyfriend?" The girl was shocked by the statement and abruptly let out, "We're just friends." "I'm Brandon from Class 1-4. Nice to meet you." The guy was overly gregarious and immediately set about introducing himself to Dylan. "So you're the Dylan who always wants to steal my popularity." Of course, Brandon had heard of this guy, but had never seen him in person, so he was very surprised. "And you're a funny guy and not like people say you are," Brandon said with a smile on his face, patting the guy on the shoulder. "Wouldn't you know it? I mean, he's scowling all the time, acting all grown up and cool. Well, that sort of thing." Brandon began to tell about the school rumors. The girl also suddenly remembered her conversation with her friend when she talked about how a lot of people hate him, but there are also those who like him. Anyways, what people say about him. But that doesn't stop him from being popular with the girls. After Brandon said that, Judy felt a little uneasy. "Dylan, even though you're blunt and unpleasant to listen to sometimes," Judy started to say abruptly, which made the guys stop talking and look at her in bewilderment. "But things change when you start to communicate with you closer, and you are actually very considerate and gentle, and I don't know why people think that." Judy finished her speech, looking at the guy with a gentle smile. But seeing how emotionless Dylan's reaction to all this was, the girl started to get angry with him. "They always talk trash about famous people at school." Brandon decided to break the awkward silence between the couple. He also decided to turn all the attention a little bit to himself. "That's what people say about me, too, that I'm a womanizer, even though I was born to be a bachelor. That's the kind of celebrity problem they are." All this conversation and a little argument between Judy and Brandon made Dylan smile. "For the first time, I see him smile, and suddenly the heaviness on my heart seems to disappear," thought the girl when she saw the guy laughing. As the couple said their goodbyes, Brandon, the girl, was a little angry that the guy was calling Dylan just like she did. "Why do you call him Bro Dylan, too?" "Because it's convenient," Brandon pronounced, leaving the pair alone. The girl walked down to the subway all tired. It felt like this day was going on too slowly, as strange things had been happening since this morning. "Well, that was fun," Dylan answered her. "So, are you feeling better now than you were before?" the girl asked the boy without hesitation. "Why are you suddenly asking that?" This kind of response from the guy made the girl surprised. It was the first school day after the November holidays, and the school was back to its normal life. Daily punishment for being late, daily sleepiness in class, and daily punishment again resumed. "Yesterday, I stayed up until 3 in the morning doing homework, and this morning I got scolded. How can I be okay?" complained Judy of her problems. "Who told you to put off your homework until the last minute every time?" Jessica replied to her. Judy was upset that her friend didn't sympathize with her in the least. Suddenly her friend asked how her autograph session went after all. Judy immediately remembered that awkward moment when she said goodbye to Dylan on the subway. "I remembered that awkward question. Is your mood better now than it was before?" Then Dylan's face was like the face of a Siamese cat, and Julia's mind was filled with anxious thoughts. What should I do? How should I explain to him? "I actually saw you recently at the Central Hospital." The girl began to speak directly, though some anxiety was evident on her face. No sooner had the girl finished than the guy interrupted her, saying that he hadn't been to any hospital. "So I've been making things up for myself. I really told him I wanted him to be happy. Is that true? He must have thought I was weird for saying something like that out of the blue." The girl really felt the most awkward in this situation. But the guy's sudden smile brought her out of her worries. "Thanks for your concern, though," Dylan said. After this awkward situation, the girl walked through the subway turnstile and turned around to see that the guy wasn't going to pass behind her. At first she thought maybe he didn't have a pass, to which he replied, "I don't ride the subway." This made the girl a little surprised. "Does that mean you're leaving me?" Such a sudden question from the girl made Dylan embarrassed, and he simply turned around and replied, I'll go. Have a good trip." Now that I think about it, I feel like he's walked me before, he said, silently walking me to the station and saying, "Have a good trip," acting like an adult anyway. It seems like I haven't seen him in days. This inexplicable feeling of loss. What is it? Such thoughts had not left the girl for days now. "Are you saying that the person who went with you to the autograph session is Dylan?" Such news clearly angered her friend. She didn't expect Judy to go out with her worst enemy. "Dylan is my study rival. How dare you hang out with him behind my back? And I was still wondering why you asked about him last time, because you didn't care about anyone before." Jessica pinched her friend's cheeks and told her off. This unfair struggle was interrupted by a guy who came up to him suddenly. It was Brendan, who had come to pick up Judy's baby for the first class of the study group, which the girl had forgotten about. It was like a thunderclap. "You're just done with dinner, so let's go," Brandon said, grabbing the girl's hand and dragging her behind him. Judy actually had completely different plans for this evening. She wanted to go home and take a little nap. The girl was haunted by the feeling like she was going to be led straight into a prison where Brandon was stupid criminal number 1, and she was the dregs of society, criminal number 2. "They say these offices are better than our regular ones. It's air-conditioned in the summer and heated in the winter," Brandon was saying, this trying to be supportive of Judy. Even though Brandon looked confident, Judy noticed that he was also a little afraid to enter this office. Walking into the office, Judy reminded the guy how he had asked to work with him in the same pairing, and to take care of him as well. "Aren't you a memoryless?" The guy really was amazed at how well she sometimes remembered such trivial things. In fact, Judy hadn't been listening to Brandon's rambling behind her back for a long time, because she saw Dylan in front of her. The two met eyes again. At that moment, Judy immediately started backward, shoving Brandon out of the office, and when she got out, she closed the door. Her heart was racing. "I think I was blinded by a bright light, and that person seemed to be... I think it was Dylan's brother." After such thoughts, her heart beat faster and louder. Still, upon entering the office, Brendan immediately decided to take a seat with Dylan, also equally surprised to see him here. "Anyone can join the study group," the guy explained to him. While the guys were chatting among themselves, Judy just stood silently looking in their direction, a kind of admiration and inexplicable joy enveloping her. She had completely forgotten the unpleasant feeling she had had when she had been forced to go to this study group. At that moment, the teacher entered the classroom and sharply yelled, "Why are you standing there? Take the empty seats!" Such a yell sent shivers throughout the girl's body, and she silently went to look for a free seat. Brandon said he would go sit in the back, thus giving Judy a seat next to Dylan. "I'm your vice principal. I think you all know me. Plus, I'm a study group teacher. I won't go into the goals. The main thing is to improve your grades." This was the teacher's speech to motivate the students. The old man said he wouldn't talk much, but he still talked nonstop. Judy was already full of anger and tiredness. But then it was supposed to look like this. Her head began to fill with romanticized moments from a short story she'd recently read. The teacher immediately appointed Dylan as president of the group, and behind his back, mutterings of disgruntled kids immediately ran. "You came here to feel your superiority over us. What a bore!" At this moment, the boy caught Judy's angry look, who turned around upon hearing this phrase. A shiver immediately ran through the young man's body, and he immediately shut up. While the group assignment was going on, Brandon immediately reminded Judy that they had already agreed to work together, and also added, "Then Brother Dylan joined us too. What a coincidence that you are the band leader." Judy awkwardly moved closer to Dylan and asked what he was doing here after all, since he was a good student. "For the sake of studying, of course." The guy got a little embarrassed and blushed and turned away from the girl. The girl was surprised how fast Dylan writes. The guy immediately entered the study mode, but despite this, from the first minutes, the girl already felt tired. Not a couple of minutes later, the girl was already lying on the desk and watching not the first dozen dreams. 28 hours earlier, Dylan was having dinner with his grandfather. "I heard you were in the hospital recently," Grandpa asked the boy. "If you're not feeling well, make sure you get some rest. You shouldn't miss class for nothing, the man continued to say. Walking into the room, Dylan immediately plopped down on his bed, closing his eyes. He began to remember moments of his childhood as he ran up to his father and asked, "Why did you stop playing the violin?" To which his father only smiled and placed his hand on his son's head and replied, "Daddy can't play the violin anymore." The little boy's eyes reflected the reflection of his father with tears streaking down his face. "Why?" Dylan asked. Then the little boy still did not understand why his father was crying. He did not know what was the right thing to do, and this phrase that no matter what the most important thing is to be happy, these pleasant feelings like a dream, these reflections of the boy interrupted by a new message from the little Judy. The girl thanked the guy for going to the autograph session with him and said, "See you at school." In the morning, Dylan went to the teacher's room to tell the teacher that he wanted to join the study group too. This made the old man very happy because he had long been looking for students who were good at learning and wanted to join this group to create a better atmosphere. But the reason why Dylan wanted to come here was maybe he just wanted to get closer to that feeling. All these thoughts were going through Dylan's mind as he watched Judy sleeping next to him, quietly sniffling over her textbooks. It had been a week since Judy had taken these extra classes, but she still couldn't get used to them. Isn't it just self-study? How hard is it there? I thought you said Dylan was there too. It's not because of him, is it? Jessica peppered her friend with questions. Setting the tray down on the table loudly, Judy looked very angry. After all, it was all because of him. He's been keeping me awake in class, and recently he even started making notes for me, Judy began to complain to her friend. And recently he woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning with his phone call and told me that the principal was on duty today and that I shouldn't be late. By these accounts, the girl was indeed very angry with the guy. That doesn't fit Dylan's image at all that the rumors have been spreading, and I heard that young master's notes aren't that easy to get. Jessica started to incite her friend a little. "Don't call him young master!" Judy's face immediately changed, and her friend was very surprised as she began to defend the opposite of the guy. "Yeah, you two are a little weird, barely know each other. But you've already gone to a signing session together, and he's also worried about your studies." Jessica clearly wanted to bring something coherent to the conversation. "Is he in love with you?" Jessica said sharply, to which Judy calmly replied, "We're just friends. How did that even occur to you?" "Okay, you two can be friends, but don't drag me into this," Jessica said. But Judy wasn't listening to her friend, because in the crowd, she noticed Dylan eating lunch alone. At the same second immediately, the girl grabbed her friend and dragged her to the guy's dining table, which the guys were obviously not very happy about, because they were rivals. "So we'll get to know each other better after this lunch, won't we?" Judy desperately tried to dispel this competitive spirit between the guys. Then suddenly, Jessica began to speak in a cold tone. "I have a question that interests me very much. What are your plans for baby Judy? No one in their right mind would agree to go with a stranger to an autograph session without a reason." At this point, Judy was seized with a kind of panic. She was blushing and didn't know where to go. While Jessica was formulating her question, Dylan looked up and met the girl's gaze, and he confidently said that he would answer the question. And here they are again sitting in the study group. The guy thinks only about one thing. It's better to study the material first. The girl is writing something so diligently next to him, but her thoughts were far from studying. "Why do I have to get angry and hysterical for no reason? It's so embarrassing!" And suddenly the girl shifted her gaze to the guy sitting next to her. She couldn't take her eyes off him. "Forget it! Forget it! It's not my style to think about it so much!" Judy tried to distract herself from these thoughts. To distract herself somehow, the girl decided to turn on her favorite cartoon about a dog and a cat. She also remembered her friend telling her that she looked a lot like that dog. "Why the hell are they all saying I look like that dog? Should I be happy?" The girl thought in incomprehension. After all, he even said it was cute. Not true. He was the one who said Bruce was cute, not me. And the girl's heart was broken at this moment. Once again, the girl remembered that moment when they first met. He seemed to take me by the collar to keep his precious mug and Bruce safe. These memories made the girl shatter from the inside out. At that moment, there was a sense of loss in tiny Judy's heart, but also anger, an uncontrollable anger at the boy. Am I worse than some unpainted dog? Just at that moment, Dylan appeared behind her, and with this appearance, the guy scared the girl to death because she didn't expect to see him here. The girl didn't even try to hide her anger. She had never written so aggressively in her notebooks before. As the girl gathered her things, she noticed that Dylan seemed to have to study a little longer every day before going home. Who cares, though? The girl was about to leave for home anyway when she got up from her seat. Dylan abruptly grabbed her backpack and asked her to wait a little longer to go home together. Of course, the girl was a little surprised by such a gesture from the guy, but agreed to wait for him for a while. Then give me 5 more minutes. I need to finish this article. The guy coldly answered her. Judy couldn't believe she had agreed to this so quickly again. Was her impulsiveness at play? Or was it something else? As the couple stood at the bus stop, Judy started to get a little worried. Why is the bus taking so long? There was a mute silence between boyfriend and girlfriend, and suddenly Dylan spoke up. Tiny Judy, today you're going to... But no sooner had he finished than the bus pulled up to the stop, and Judy said goodbye. Thank you for seeing me off, and started to get on the bus. The bus driver asked the girl if the guy behind her would be getting on, to which Judy said, Sir, you can go, he won't. But what was the girl's surprise when she heard footsteps behind her and the guy's voice? I'll ride with you. Besides the fact that these words made the girl's heart beat even faster, the driver started yelling behind her. If you want to go, pay the fare. If not, get off. Don't be a pain in the ass. And that made the atmosphere even more heated. And so the pair were already sitting in their seats on the bus. There was silence between them, but the girl was visibly nervous being next to Dylan. What the hell is he doing here? And he's not saying a word, thought the girl, discreetly glancing at the guy next to her. But suddenly, Dylan decided to interrupt the silence, trying to continue the phrase he hadn't finished at the bus stop. Tiny Judy, are you mad at me? Uttered the boy, looking directly into the girl's eyes. From such a direct question, which the girl was not at all prepared for, she swallowed nervously and waved her hand away from the guy, saying, I don't know. But to be honest, I was a little angry. The girl started to say quietly, Why did you say I looked like a dog? And that's the only reason you're friends with me? The girl's face was completely red after yelling like that to the whole bus. Panic gripped the guy. I think it's cool to be like Bruce. He was one of the most popular cartoon characters of the last century, and he's not exactly a regular puppy. The guy started to justify himself. How should I put it? Bruce may have been one of the reasons, but I think it has more to do with you yourself, your bright and warm personality. The guy continued to say, It's something you're not able to handle, and that's why one wants to be closer to you. These words made the girl calm down and listen to the end of the guy's thought. She immediately remembered the moment from the novella when the main character said, My getting closer to you has nothing to do with your background or your past. It's just because of the kind of person you are, the kind of person no one can resist. Those words were too similar to what Dylan had just said. While the guy was nervously trying to justify his actions, the girl was already in her clouds and fantasies, mixing real life with the plot of the novel. The look of the guy could completely melt Judy's heart. A little blushing and turning away from him, she said, Okay, I'm not mad anymore. A little later, Judy added, I'm very grateful to you. Not many people will say that about me. Whether it's my sister or my classmates, most of them study better and are more obedient than me. I only get reprimands all the time. So when you said such a nice thing about me, I was a bit shocked. That nervous laugh of the girl, and her cheeks completely red, gave away a bit of her embarrassment that she was trying to hide so carefully. And again, this awkward silence, the girl decided, interrupting it by suggesting that the guy listen to some music together. Turns out she's not as carefree as I thought. With such thoughts, the guy occasionally glanced at the girl that sat quietly listening to music nearby. I think I recommended this song to you. This song is the song to a fictional story based on the book The Hardships of Youth. Amplifying the silence a bit, the girl said, talking about the track that was playing in their headphones. The lyrics are based on the main character's life, and you must know more about music than I do. This phrase from the girl made the guy go off on his own again, reminiscing about his childhood and his father. By the way, Dylan, lately you started carrying a violin. Do you perform somewhere? The girl suddenly asked. I'm preparing for the school festival, the guy answered her. When the guy talked about the rehearsals and how he was selecting songs, the girl immediately lit up with the idea of coming to watch. Can I come and watch you rehearse? This question caught the guy off guard. If you want to watch, then come. The girl's happiness was unbounded. I'm looking forward to watching Dylan play the violin. These thoughts made the girl blush, and her heart started beating faster. The next day, Judy went to the guy's rehearsal and saw some beautiful girl there next to him. She was very attractive, but what surprised Judy more was when this girl addressed her by saying, "Baby Judy." As a child, Judy always found that her sister was praised more than herself because her older sister was much better in her studies. It seems that it was when she was 5 that she first felt like a white crow. People always cared only about the best. A little red flower or something like that is not even worth mentioning, because it is obvious that the memory of 10 years ago of little Judy was that her sister was again the best among her peers. Sitting in the office and listening to Dylan and the girl discussing the school festival, it seemed to her that she had stumbled upon a spoiler. So without thinking long, she decided to leave the room so as not to interfere with their preparations. I remembered that I have a class meeting at 2 o'clock today. I'd better wait for the festival and listen to the violin playing there. As quickly as possible, Judy hurried out of the office. The girl standing next to Dylan noticed something. Do you like her? You look excited, she said. No wonder your grandfather noticed the strange behavior at our recent dinner. Why aren't you saying anything? Can't you figure out if you love her? The girl continued to incite the boy. I hadn't thought about what that feeling is called. The guy got a little embarrassed and blushed. Well, you can think about it later, but for now, let's get on with the song. Translating the subject sharply issued the girl, turning over the sheet of the tablet. Dylan remembered that he had one song in mind. It was in Chinese style, which surprised the girl. This song she recommended to me, Dylan said, a little embarrassed. And now it was the 80th anniversary of the school. The performance would start at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, so everyone was asked to come early to see the performance. The warehouse was in complete chaos, each class coming in to pick up their props for the performance. Judy was without company, without a performance, without work, and without errands. But she was walking around like she was tortured. Why is it suddenly warm again, even though it's fall? I'd better find a hidden spot before the performance starts. Suddenly passing by the crowd, the girl heard some conversation. I heard that Dylan will be performing at this event, and it seems he'll be performing with the senior class president, one was saying. That's Dylan's childhood friend. This conversation between the girls both interested Judy and infuriated her at the same time. Damn, why did you guys start talking quieter? Starting as if to pivot back a bit to get closer to the girls, and so that it was also unnoticeable. How was your day, Judy baby? That harsh whisper made the girl petrified on the spot. A shiver ran through her body and her face went pale. It was Brendan, who had noticed the girl's strange behavior and decided to ask her what was wrong. Calm down. I don't care about my big sister or anyone else. I do have a conscience. Judy tried to calm herself down, but somehow it didn't help her much, with Brendan standing over her. Somehow the girl, having calmed her train of thought a little, realized that Brendan was again trying to throw his errand at her. At that moment, the whole crowd started shouting Dylan's name. Turning around, Judy saw the crowd gathered around him and the girl she saw in the rehearsal class. So it was Jennifer, his childhood friend that the girls in the crowd were talking about. Despite all the crowd Dylan managed to cross glances with Judy, she seemed so concerned. The girl was a little flustered by this eye contact and didn't even know how to act. "Don't you want to admit to yourself that you like her?" Jennifer couldn't stop prodding the guy, asking such tricky questions. And indeed, Judy had long since disappeared into the middle of the crowd, and the guy still couldn't stop staring. "Tell me how to tell if you like someone?" Dylan suddenly asked. "What's wrong with you? What kind of question is that? Sympathy isn't a math problem. There's no exact answer," Jennifer started to tell him. "But I'd say it was what you just did. You can instantly find her in a crowd, and actually because you care about her explained," the girl to Dylan. "He's not here. Are you sure he's in the school building?" Judy asked her friend, looking for something in the box. Judy was actually a little angry why she had to help her friend's class look for some cat, to which her friend only said it was a small favor for a good friend. "But why don't you use the pigeons in your class to conjure?" Judy asked her friend as she left the classroom. "But the cat can't fly, and yet it escaped." Not forgetting to tease her friend, said Judy. "Nevertheless, what just happened to you?" concernedly asked her friend. "Thought about something while I was walking in the crowd," Judy calmly answered her. Her friend was beginning to worry a little about Judy, for she looked a little strange, though she continued to assure her that she was all right. If you think about it, a young aristocrat with excellent grades and a well-rounded girl, calm and belligerent. These two are perfect for each other, and the most important thing is that they've been friends since childhood. The real protagonist of the novel and its heroine were Judy's thoughts as she found her way down the corridor. Compared to them, I'm just a silly doggy and not even the one he likes. Dear alumni, teachers, and students, very soon the performance will begin. To view, please make your way to the main stage at the venue. The replay of the recording of the performance is about to begin. That's exactly what was blaring on every speaker throughout the school. And after all, Judy had promised to watch him for the performance. No time to waste, her friend immediately started chasing her friend out of the classroom to make it to the performance. Suddenly, the sound of a concert tune came on all the speakers. The concert had already started, and Judy remembered the tune. It was the same song she had recommended to him on the bus, the soundtrack to the fanfic for the book, The Hardships of Youth. Is he really going to perform it at such an important event? And at that moment, there was a rustling sound in a nearby box. "I finally found you, Black Fluffy," Judy said as she took the cat out of the box. "We found him in the 5th floor common room. I told you he was in the school building." Jessica was talking to someone on the phone. Just then, the radio blared the climax of the piece of work. It caught the girls' attention, and they were distracted from the cat. "Yes, I told you I wanted to see him. But why is it that when I think of him, my heart fills with bitterness?" These thoughts kept young Judy uneasy. Even so, she immediately sprang from her seat, handed the cat to her friend, and rushed forward down the corridor, heading for the stage. She really wanted to see him on stage, shining and playing the violin. When she arrived, she saw that he was alone on stage, so Judy questioned the girl next to her. Yes, Jennifer's sister was the host, so there was no duet. She answered awkwardly, the words making her feel relieved. And at that moment, it was as if a new emotion hit her head. It was the first time it saw Dylan playing the violin, and then for the first time she realized that there seemed to be a very long distance between them. "Thank you, Dylan, for your beautiful rendition of the song. This is the first time I've heard the fiddle combination of Chinese traditional music," the host said as the tune ended. These words knocked Judy out of her thoughts. At that moment, the crowd of girls abruptly burst forward. "Didn't they say a lot of people hate him? What's going on?" Judy didn't realize what was going on around her. "I don't see him at all. Forget it. I'd better go first," Judy thought, turning around already towards the exit. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her. It was Dylan, and he had barely caught up with the girl. In fact, after Dylan had called her name, the girl started to feel nervous. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, and now she could feel everyone looking at her. She started to cough from fear. Such stress was making her asthma attack again. She knew she should just run away from here, but her legs wouldn't obey her. She didn't have enough strength for that. Picking the girl up in his arms, the guy carried her to the infirmary, telling her not to talk too much. "I brought my medicine with me." These words made the guy stop, and he said, "Then I'll put you in a chair here." "Lucky I have medicine in my pocket. This time I got better so fast. Will my body get better?" The girl couldn't stop being happy about her luck and the medicine she had in her pocket. Besides, she couldn't believe her eyes. What had just happened in front of everyone's eyes? Or rather, she couldn't believe it had happened to her. "You look like you've already recovered completely," Dylan said as he walked down the stairs behind the girl. "Are you still proud of yourself? You probably haven't learned your lesson, have you?" The boy began to reprimand the girl. "Didn't you have a seizure last time due to physical exertion? You're an adult now. Maybe you should take some basic precautions." The guy wouldn't stop muttering. I was in a hurry, clearly. I was so excited to see you perform." Awkwardly, the girl began to justify herself. In parallel, her face was beginning to blush, and she was visibly nervous. "I came down from the 5th floor especially for you. I could have just sat in the classroom watching and listening to the radio. If you don't praise me, you don't have to lecture me." The girl was already starting to get mad at the guy, and now her face was red with anger. "Judy, thank you. From now on, don't run away. I'll come where you will." With these words, the guy put his hand on the girl's head, thus soothing her as if she were a little child. But for Judy, it was more like treating a dog. Not being able to bear her embarrassment, the girl hurried away as quickly as possible. Somehow or other, the guy managed to lure the girl to the club's exhibit. While they were standing around getting donuts, 2 twins approached the guy, informing him that the key performance indicators of the literary society depended on him. "The image of the hero who saved the pretty girl just now. Can we publish that in the school magazine?" said one of the twins. Such news made nearby Judy choked with shock. Although it's a bit of a cliché, the image of the inconspicuous girl is still very popular right now, especially the cute girl style they really like, the twins went on to say. Dylan, of course, had some idea what they were talking about, but wasn't particularly convinced by the idea. Judy, in turn, felt inexplicable excitement from so many compliments. She knew that the role of the main character was not quite suitable for her. And then Dylan sharply remembered that conversation with Jennifer, in which she tried to explain to him what love was and how to realize that you liked someone. He remembered how he'd found Judy in the crowd without any effort, and how he'd looked at her even after she disappeared into the crowd. And even now, he couldn't keep his eyes off her for a second. Watching her blush and fret and try to calm herself down ineptly, it was all a fascination to him. The conversation was interrupted by some guy. "I asked you to find material for the school, not to do journalism. The school magazine is not an entertainment magazine." The blonde-haired guy addressed Dylan. The twins immediately turned their attention to the incoming guy. "Didn't the student council say that if we don't sell more copies, we have to stop publishing?" While the opportunity presented itself, Judy decided to ask Dylan, "Does our school have its own newspaper?" Upon hearing this question, the blonde-haired boy immediately walked over to Judy and hovered over her and said, "It's the school's excellent provincial publisher. The papers were sold out in newsstands outside of town at the peak. Did you know?" This speech made Judy visibly nervous, and she broke out in a cold sweat and replied in a shaky voice, "I didn't know."